And I'm going to do a little centering for us. So wherever you are right now, just stand still for a moment and close your eyes and take a nice deep breath in and just bring yourself fully present and acknowledge this now moment right now. Going ahead and taking another nice deep breath in and just releasing that and letting that go. Infinite universe, we call our highest selves forward into your love, light, and sound. We ask to be cleared, filled, surrounded, and protected with the golden light of the divine. We ask that any negativity, any imbalance, any distress, discomfort, dis-ease, any energy or vibrational frequency that is vibrating at anything less than divine love, we ask that all of that just be taken up into the highest realms of light and sound and transmuted back into the nothingness from which it came. We ask that that empty space then be filled with love and light, peace and joy, abundance, bliss, deep inner knowing, gratitude. We acknowledge and invite in the angels and teachers and guides that are working with each one of us, supporting each of us here tonight. We ask for their presence, guiding us, assisting us, helping everyone to make deep connections within their own heart for information that resonates most deeply with each individual here. We are so grateful for the opportunity to come together and the opportunity to do this work. For this and so much more, we say thank you, and so it is. Whenever you are ready to bring your awareness back to the room, you can go ahead and do that. And I just want to say thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. I'm so grateful that you took this time out for yourself. And I want to acknowledge you for taking this time out for yourself to acknowledge the most important person in your life experience, who is you. Tonight, I'm going to share about 3 distinctions between self-care and self-love. And this is actually one of my favorite topics because when I was in the corporate world, I did a lot of self-care, and I was under the misunderstanding, you can say, that if I packed a lot of self-care into the free time that I had on the weekends, that was a program for my overall health and well-being and for the balance in my life. And it certainly wasn't sustainable, I found out. But I practiced that for a really long time and was constantly cramming self-care into just a couple of days on the weekend, and then thinking that I was ready to, go back on Monday morning and be completely rejuvenated. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah. I want to share a story first and foremost about how I learned about self-love, because self-love wasn't something that was actually in my vocabulary at all until I went on a little journey. And the journey was, I had a dream that I had a fish hook all the way through my left breast. And in my dream, I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I could see this fish hook that had completely punctured its way all the way through my breast. And it was bloody and it was messy. And I was really fixated on the barb part of the fish hook. And while it had punctured my breast, and that's what I was looking at in this reflection of myself, it was really present for me that the thing was not coming back out as easily as maybe it had gone in. And so in my dream, I said out loud to myself in the mirror, how am I going to get out of this? And I woke up and I felt my left breast. And a couple of months earlier, I had noticed this little tiny, it felt like a piece of sand, actually. And I did not give it a second thought. It was like in one brain cell and out the other. Well, the moment that I woke up from this dream, I felt my breast, and my first thought was, oh my God, is that still there? And it totally was. So that day, I made an appointment for an ultrasound at my OBGYN, and that appointment led to another appointment and another appointment and another appointment. And before I knew it, 5 days before my 47th birthday, I was being told that I had a triple negative stage 1 breast cancer diagnosis. Well, this past week, I celebrated 3.5 years cancer-free, which is a really big deal, actually. When you have an experience like this, you come face to face with your own mortality and really the shocking possibility that this could take you out of the game. So it's quite a sobering experience, to say the absolute least. And I had resigned my position at as a corporate executive, and an entire year had gone by, an entire year where I had really made a lot of changes in my life. I had slowed down considerably. I was no longer working a 60-hour a week work week. I started meditating every single day. I started eating out of the Vitamix. I started exercising. I started doing a lot more self-care. And so this year went by, and I had been doing all these self-care strategies, and boom, what a shock to learn this news, first of all. And then the second piece of it was like, oh my God, I've like made all of these changes, and now this is what I'm getting handed. So it was an incredibly sobering reality to come to face with this. And it really invited me into the space that I think breast cancer is really about. And that is about self-nurturing and self-love. And there was a point in a process that I was doing called compassionate self-forgiveness at the University of Santa Monica, where I earned my master's degree in spiritual psychology. There was a process that I was doing where I suddenly had this incredible amount of compassion for myself. And I was really taken aback with how had I gotten myself into a position like this? Like, how had I been treating myself in such a way that this incredible disease had now manifested itself in my body? And in that moment, when I had that awareness and that epiphany, I had the deepest amount of respect and compassion and just honoring for myself and my humanness. And a lot of lessons unfolded along the way and came to light for me as a result of that walk, as a result of coming face to face with my own mortality and really deciding that I wanted to live life differently, that I didn't want to take the path of illness and checking out of this life. So I'm going to do my best to share my screen, but before that, I just want to unmute you for 1 second. There you go. And I just want to check in with you and see if there's any awarenesses that you're having or anything that you're called to share at this moment.
Truthfully, I just admire your story. And every time I hear your story, it just brings me back to a place of, one, the importance of meditation to create the space to then have dreams like what you did. But two, just the knowing and the intuitiveness to know what that dream was in your awake state. And I just, every single time I've heard your story, I've read your story, it's inspiring because it's a very conscious choice to stay committed to a regular practice to get messages like that.
Yeah, well, Ashley, that is a perfect lead-in to one of my first slides. Of course, right? Because I love talking about my practice. So I am going to see if I can share my screen here and pull up my presentation. All right. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So the most important person in your life experience is you. We can't say it enough. And right now I'm going to walk you through 3 important distinctions between self-care and self-love. So self-care, right? We all know about self-care. And those of us with, I think, any level of consciousness know that self-care is important. And I think women are always striving and struggling to find the time to fit in self-care. But self-care is an activity that we do deliberately in order to take care of our mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual health. Self-love, it's so interesting. As I was going out on the internet and looking up the definition of self-love, I found a lot of things that were very derogatory, actually. Self-love is referred to as narcissism. And I submitted today to the Open Dictionary a more updated definition of self-love. And so I created this definition. Self-love is the honor, reverence, and compassion in respect of the divinity and the humanness that is you. And I really believe that that is what self-love is where we have this intersection between the higher aspect of ourself and our humanness. And it's in the reverence and the awe and the honor that we can bring to that, to all of us, to that beingness that is what self-love is. So I don't know, I'm no expert in English. I have no idea. This will probably get rejected, but who knows? It would be kind of fun to get it updated. So what I'm going to share with you tonight are some self-mastery tools and some awarenesses that are offered, all having to do with self-love and self-love practice. But the thing that I want to emphasize, which it sounds obvious when I say it, but I think it's worth repeating, is that this is all about the relationship that you have with you. And because outer experience is a reflection of inner reality, and what that means is that life is a mirror, the more we can build a relationship with ourself that is loving and nurturing and honoring, the more our life experience is going to reflect that back to us. So that's sort of my motivation for my reasoning in sharing this information. Robert Holden says, if something in your life is missing, it's probably you. That is the underscore to my women's retreat and why I created Discover the Authentic You, which I'm going to talk a little bit about at the end of my presentation. So, distinction number one, responsibility of self-care versus the reverence of self-love. And self-care, because it's an activity, it can feel like a chore or a responsibility. Self-care is definitely something that we have to do, right? We have to take action in order to perform self-care or fit self-care into our life. Whereas self-love feels like something that occurs with reverence and honoring of ourself. So it's the difference between having to do something and really a feeling of reverence and a feeling of honoring ourselves. And ways that we can begin to incorporate that into our life and bring in more of that feeling of reverence is just what you were saying, is creating a practice. So developing a habit where we are honoring ourselves. And that can take place in a meditation practice. It can take place in a spiritual practice. It can also take place in 5 minutes of just breathing and connecting with our breath and bringing forward the conscious intention of honoring ourselves and honoring the journey that we're making, that our soul essence is making in these bodies, right? It's really just the conscious intention of making the choice to honor ourselves. Another way that we can practice this, and this can actually be really difficult work. So I just invite you to bring in a lot of compassion and a lot of gentleness if you do try this. But holding your own gaze in the mirror and looking deeply into your own eyes, connecting with your soul, connecting with the essence of your spirit, and saying out loud to yourself in the mirror, I love you. I'm here for you. I've got your back. Mirror work can be incredibly powerful, but it also can invite in judgment. And that's another great reason to do it, because we can consciously attune to that compassion and that loving that we can bring to ourselves by doing work in the mirror. Commitments. You know, as women, we make commitments to so many people and so many things and so many, we make commitments to our companies and to our clients. We make commitments to our family, to our kids, to our husbands, and we kill ourselves trying to keep these commitments. But what I have found in so many of my clients is that the first person that we're willing to break a commitment with is ourselves. And I just want to be a voice for putting yourself at the top of your priority list. Making and keeping a commitment to yourself builds self-trust. And when we build self-trust, we build self-confidence and we build self-esteem. And in that, we build self-love. And this is another way that we consciously honor ourselves when we make and keep commitments. Speaking your truth, another one of my favorites. Speaking our truth with both our wins and our losses. Are we willing to be seen in our greatness and in our glory, as well as being willing to be seen in our vulnerability or in our, not so pretty moments. Being able to reveal our truth can be a really scary thing, because it means that we are sometimes separating ourselves from the tribe, or separating ourselves from the majority, or separating ourselves from what's popular. And that can be really scary, but it also can be incredibly empowering to stand forward and be honest with, first and foremost, ourself, and then having the courage to speak our truth and speak our honesty with other people in our life. What an incredible way to build that self-love and that self-compassion. Stand for you. So many of us are advocates for so many things. We're advocates for causes and companies and people, and ideas, but who stands for you? So this is an invitation. If you really want to continue to build that reverence and that awe for yourself, try standing with yourself, standing up for yourself, standing by yourself. And I don't mean like standing alone, but I mean standing side by side with you. Wow, that's incredible. So we're going to go to the distinction number 2. Self-care honors the temple of you, whereas self-love honors the essence of you. So because self-care is an activity, it can be fragmented in the way that we focus our attention in self-care. And it usually ends up falling into a particular category. And we've got the categories of mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. But usually when we are taking action in a self-care activity, it falls in one of those categories. And my point with this is that it becomes splintered. We are a whole being. And self-love honors our spirit. It honors our wholeness. It honors our full embodiment. And in so doing, we honor all the levels of ourself simultaneously. So some practices that we can bring in as it pertains to honoring your essence is listen to your heart. I'm super mental. And, I grew up believing that I wasn't that smart. And because of that, I was always in this competition to look smart and, have the facts and have the evidence and be super logical about the way that I lived my life and the way that I made my decisions. And what I've realized over time, and what I've realized really through my breast cancer journey, was I was leaving out like major parts of myself. I was leaving out my emotional intelligence. And I was leaving out my spiritual intelligence, because our spiritual intelligence invites you to be more of you. So when we listen to our heart, which is connected to our spirit, we sometimes can make decisions in our life that might not seem logical. And I just want to be the voice for the fact that that is okay. And many of my richest, most delicious experiences in my life have been made without logic, not the least of which was marrying my husband after meeting him on the internet and only knowing him for 3 weeks. And I agreed to marry him. So listen to your heart. Your heart has so much wisdom. It is so connected to your spirit and to that higher part of you, that wisdom part of you that has information for you in your life. And in that, the next piece of this is to acknowledge the multidimensionality of the connectedness of you, that your overall health and well-being and self-love is promoted in the understanding that we are operating on multiple different levels, that there are multiple different facets of us. And the acknowledgement of that, just the awareness of that, can bring in that reverence, right? And honoring the essence of who we truly are. The third part, the third tool that I'm offering you here is loving your wholeness. And the more work that I do on the spiritual path and the longer that I have been on the spiritual path, the more understanding that I have that the spiritual path is about falling in love with our humanness. And when we can love all the parts of ourself, that truly is the reflection of self-love, because we're human and we're not perfect and we're messy and sometimes, we're not pretty and we're not smart, and those are all parts of us too. Those are all parts of us too. And so when we can really love the messy parts, the not so pretty parts, that's when we're onto something. That's when we can have so much loving and compassion. And I think our ability to do that has to come from a higher place. It has to come from the perspective of our soul, seeing through the eyes of our spirit, because that is what holds that amount of compassion and love for our humanness. Distinction number 3. Self-care is something that we do, and self-love is a way of being. So this is one of my favorite topics because I'm a doer, Donna the doer. And, I can get shit done. I can go down a list. I can be a taskmaster. I can do. And my path of being was really revelatory in coming into alignment with the true essence of my spirit. And it requires slowing down. It requires stillness. It requires a practice of honoring ourselves. And I, come back full circle. But other mindsets that we can hold to assist us with the embodiment of self-love as a way of being is to remember, first and foremost, that we are divine spiritual beings having a human experience and not the other way around. That, we're under the misnomer that we're a body and that we have a soul. But it's the other way. We are first and foremost this incredible energy system. We are connected to all that is. And this body and this personality are our soul's avatar. So remembering that is a great way to embody self-love as a way of being. The next tool that I'm offering you is being able to see through the lens, see through your lens that all of life is for learning and that everything that's happening is really for us. Your soul was very involved in the grand plan of your life. and it knows what it's doing because it's been here before, and it has wisdom and knowing and guidance for you. Sometimes that wisdom and knowing and guidance might not look like something that we prefer down here on the ground, right? And if we can just relax and lay down the judgments that we bring to when things are happening the way that we don't prefer, if we could just relax into that and ask the question, what is here for me? How can I see this particular situation that I don't really want to be in? How can I engage with this person who I might not even really like? But how can I open myself up to the invitation that there is a learning opportunity for me here with whatever's happening? And when I was able to make that switch in my life, boy, did things get so much easier, because there's a surrender process that you go through where you are inviting in whatever is coming your way. Lastly is your way of being goes with you everywhere you go. So when we're willing to embody the love that we are and embody self-love, we can begin to cherish and honor and love our wholeness from the place of loving, from the loving being that we are. And when we can reside in that place and come from that place, then that is the place that engages with life in every situation. So when we're embodying the self-love that we are, we can invite that reflection back into our life. So if anybody has any awareness that they want to share, any epiphany that you've had in your own personal experience that you would like to talk about, now is the time to do that. It would be, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Am I unmuted?
You are, yes.
um, with having worked with you before, I am so mindful of creating a practice to just really support myself. And it's been fascinating. I just actually this past weekend had an experience with a client that was unfortunately, from her side of things, was a very negative, judgmental and like critical emo. And it was fascinating because before having a regular practice of self-love and just talking to myself and journaling and just doing these things to really fill up my cup, had I got that email, let's say a couple years ago, it would have devastated me. It would have made me second guess everything that I do in my business. And with creating the space and time to really have this self-care and this self-love, I was able to respond to it in a very just sincere, loving way. And it wound up, although it wasn't my favorite situation, it wound up being one that was an incredible teacher and worked out beautifully in the end.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Ashley.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Well, and I just want to acknowledge you also for taking action to incorporate a practice into your life. I know you had one before, and it kind of you got sidetracked from it, and I just want to acknowledge you for bringing it back and incorporating it into your life.
Yeah. It's life-changing and life-giving.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing. Well, I'm going to well, you just muted yourself again, but so this is an invitation, and for anybody who is going to watch this at a later time, um, I want to invite you into a complimentary discovery session with me to explore and talk about my women's retreat, Discover the Authentic You, which is taking place February 8th through the 10th of 2019. This is an incredibly gorgeous weekend. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to ask Ashley to share in a moment her experience about the retreat because she attended the one that we had at the end of September. But just quickly, I want to give you if you would like more information, the deep information on the retreat, I want to invite you to visit discoverauthenticU.com. And this is a 2.5-day sacred container that I create for just 6 women who will come together and share, be seen, discover some truths about themselves, make some new decisions for themselves and their life. They'll bring clarity into what's going on in their world now and begin to get clarity on things that they'd like to cultivate in the future. And I've created this material over several years. It is a compilation of my own journey and really focusing on the past 5 years of my life since I left the corporate arena, resigned my position as a marketing executive, and started my work as a professional life and business coach, and became an entrepreneur. Just seems crazy. So I have a lot of stories to share about all of the magical and synchronistic things that have happened to me along the way. And because I was in the luxury sector in the hotel business, I really understand how delicious it can be to nurture yourself. So this retreat includes overnight accommodations at the Monarch Beach Resort in Dana Point, California. The workshop portion of it takes place in my home. One of my former clients is a private chef, Jolene Dixon with Kitchen Maids, and she prepares all of the food, which is beautiful and gorgeous and nurturing and loving. So if self-love is something that is increasingly important to you, I want to invite you into Discover the Authentic You, because this weekend retreat is a beautiful way to cultivate more self-love in your life and to strengthen the relationship that you have with you. And on the next slide, I just want to offer up my email address, which is Donna at Donna Bond. And if you email me, I would be happy to schedule a discovery session with you so that you can experience a coaching session with me firsthand. And we can really talk about what's going on for you and see if the retreat is a match and something that resonates with you. And Ashley, I would love to ask you to share a little bit about your experience before we bring this to conclusion tonight. So please unmute yourself, and I'd love to hear.
I'd love to share. I don't even know how to sum it up into words. As soon as I did the clarity session with you, I knew that I was supposed to be at Discover the Authentic You. It just resonated, and every part of my being said, you need to be there. And I'm so infinitely grateful for really making the commitment and the choice to carve out the time and the space to really make this a priority. And the weekend was just more than I could have ever imagined. Not only was there incredible content delivered from you, but from that content and the activities that follow, there were so many aha moments and so much clarity and so much depth. And alongside, I mean, getting to do this with just an intimate group of women just creates this sisterhood where the women that were at this retreat will always be sisters now, always, because of what we got to experience. And the icing on the cake is the incredible food and the incredible hotel accommodation, which is just so yummy. Yeah, it really is. If like, don't second guess it, just do it.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you. Thank
And
you.
thank you so much for being here tonight. And I'm so grateful to anyone who took the time, the 45 minutes out to watch this. I hope that it was helpful in some way and that you found it valuable. And I'm just super grateful and want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Love to you.
Bye.
Bye.